here we are again, just giving you another update. It's a nice wet Sunday here, so of course I'm in the garage crawling around on a cold concrete floor. But anyway, just to show you where I'm at, you would have seen I had the engine in the last episode, so I've got all that bolted in now. Quick visual, you might notice that I've changed out the leads from the blue ones to the red ones there, and I've just changed out the fuel filler cap to one that's a bit less bright, so I just think that looks a little bit better than the blue leads and the orange cap. And I've been just making all the little connections you need to make, such as the starter motor. So you can see I've got the high torque starter motor installed there now, and wired up. You can see the blue main lead coming off there, which runs around and up to my new terminal block. And I've got my alternator wired in, and I'm just making all those connections. Trying to mate all the old Vauxhall wires to the new Lotus engine. Yesterday I went ahead and ran the new battery lead. I'll just take you down here from the boot, or the trunk. So you can see there's my main orange feed wire coming out of the battery box, which again it just sits underneath there, and then it's running through a grommet through the firewall there. And then if I come around here, you can see it's runs down the wheel arch there and behind the back seat. I'll put the back seat back in again, and runs down through here and runs through this little chassis bulkhead rail here through a sleeve, and then runs forward to the front here and underneath my terminal block, again going through the bulkhead through a sleeve, all nicely protected. And that just sits down there and clamps in place. So yeah, that's what I'm up to, just all those little annoying jobs, and trying to get this to a stage where I can get it to start up. So that's what I'm focusing on. I've gone ahead and made myself a fresh list of to-dos, and one of those is, or top of the list really, is to install the new electric fuel pump. Unlike the Vauxhalls, the Lotus XLs had an electric fuel pump from the factory, not mechanical. So I have sourced a new electric fuel pump, and will be mounting that down underneath the car, near the fuel tank, and installing the filter and then a relay as well. And after a little bit of research, I'm probably going to install a safety cutoff switch for it as well, so that when the engine stops unexpectedly, I guess from an accident or otherwise, it'll cut the flow of fuel. And so to do that, I'm probably going to use the center unit, or a center unit from the oil pressure inlet there. So you can obviously get a oil pressure switch that will cut off the flow of fuel if you wire it in to a relay. So that's probably how I'll do things eventually. I'll probably just get it wired up without that, just to get the car running, but eventually I will have a cut-off switch wired into my oil pressure switch there. So basically I'm running two feeds, I guess, from the oil pressure. It's going to be hard to show you here, but the little block that bolts to the engine, you can see this there, from the factory, has a second little spot here for mounting to. So I went ahead and made use of that and had it drilled and tapped to accept the original mechanical oil pressure line that will come off here, and also the original oil temp sender, which comes off here. And so this is the original oil pressure sender that came with the engine, which I was going to mount inside the car as well, and I probably will, just as a backup. It's nice to have a nice electric sender rather than the mechanical, just a bit more reliable, I think. But I will be utilising that also, or that position, or that spot for the cut-off switch for the oil pressure, which again will just cut off the power to the electric fuel pump eventually. So that's the plan. I have, as I've mentioned, sourced a fuel pump, and that is this item here. This is the Eco 15 LM12 unit from Fuel Flow, local New Zealand manufacturer. It's a low pressure, self-regulating type pump, so I'm hoping that will do the trick. Low pressure, as I think I mentioned. So that's what I am going to busy myself with today, installing that underneath the car, and then work out the wiring from there. So again, just working through a few things as far as that's concerned. I'll probably mount the relay up in the boot area here somewhere. Again, there's wiring that goes through the rear firewall here, you know, for the lights and so forth, so I'll probably make use of that spot to run the wire forward eventually to the cut-off switch. So yeah, as you can see now, the car is up off the floor on jacks, so I can crawl underneath there and do what I need to do. Yesterday I also spent some time just rerouting the rear brake line that you might have seen me mention previously. That was running up the left-hand chassis rail and then crossing over the bulkhead at the front bulkhead, and running across to the brake master cylinder, which just made the engine bay look a little bit untidy. So I've switched that over, and it now runs up the right hand side of the fuel line of the chassis, and clipped to the same brackets that the fuel line is connected to, which I'll show you a little bit later on. So that just makes it a little bit of a tidier installation, and it was easy to do, so I thought, why not? And so that's what I'm up to today. When I get underneath this car, I'll sort of show you a bit more. So yeah, that's where we're at. I will come back to you shortly with some more progress. Thanks. Alright, well, welcome to the underside of my car. This is fun. So anyway, this is where I'm looking at putting my electric fuel pump. So that is the front of my petrol tank. The 8-gallon tank, I might mention, not the new 12-gallon that I'm putting in, which I need to keep in mind. And so you can see there's my fuel line come out of that tank and running down the right hand side of the car. And there's that brake line that I've, the rear brake line that I've moved also to run down the right hand side of the car. So yeah, I'm thinking this is probably a good spot for my pump to sit. If I was to hold it up here somewhere, I don't know, I'm trying to keep it away from my exhaust system as much as possible. Even though that's where the most space is, it's just not ideal to have it near exhaust for obvious reasons. So probably near the center of the tank is probably where I'm going to try and aim for, because that's where the sender unit for an inlet for the new tank is located. So I'll try and stay within clear of that. So probably up in here somewhere, bolted through. I'll probably use some riv nuts and bolt through the trunk floor to hold that up in place. You can see that's another riv nut from holding the battery box and poking through there. Great things, those riv nuts. So that's where I'm aiming for. So we'll come back shortly and see if I've been successful. Alright. Yeah, so just here we are again, inside the boot again, obviously. So that location I was looking at underneath the car was, you know, right around this spot here. So sort of there, but on the underside. So no, I mean ideally I'd love to mount this inside the boot here, you know, somewhere up out here which is nicely accessible and so forth. But I'm not sure about the regulations here in New Zealand as far as having that inside the boot space, so I might check that out carefully. Because obviously that would be a lot easier, but I also think you're supposed to have these sort of not higher than the fuel tank, I believe, is the recommended way to go. So I might do a little bit more research on that, but I think I'll probably end up going underneath. I'm just going to do a little bit of research on mounting this inside the boot. Because again, that would just work out so much easier to get to, and just a matter of then having to run lines through the boot floor and so forth. So it's 6 of one, half dozen the other, really. Anyway, I'll come back to you with an update shortly. Okay, well, just after a little bit more research on the LVVTA website, which is New Zealand's low volume vehicle certifier that all vehicles have to fall under. The fuel pump and the battery can be mounted inside the boot as long as one or both of them are separated by a non-conductive box, which obviously the battery is. So in theory I am fine to put the pump in the boot or the trunk. So really it's just a case of whether it's going to operate you know, okay in that position. You know, it's going to pull fuel out. I think once it's primed it should be fine. The fuel should stay in the line and get pulled through okay. I'm just not 100% on that. Again, ideally the pump would be I think below or at the same level as your fuel outlet pipe. So you can see I've just got the new tank sitting here in the boot just for positioning wise. The outlet, you can see there, is where the inlet goes through the fuel sender inlet there. And so as long as I'm sort of, you know, to the right hand side of that space there, in here somewhere, either on top or below, I'm good to go. So again, I've just got to decide what I want to do here. Obviously it's going to be nice to have it inside the boot for accessibility, but there's no point, it's not going to function well. And then of course, you know, if you put it in here, you've got to run the fuel lines through the boot floor here somewhere, and put them through a grommet and so forth, which is no big deal. It's really just a case of if it's going to operate well is the most important thing to me. So I don't know, I'm just going to play around the locations here and see what I can make work. I'm probably just being a little bit lazy and looking in here really. I should just get underneath the car and find a spot and mount it, but you know, why not make it easy? Alright, I'm going to think on this a little bit and come back to you. So yeah, here we are. Again, after some hee-hawing about the petrol pump location, I have decided to mount it underneath the car. So you can see there's a couple of those are actually riv nuts coming through from the underside, so that's where it's bolted up to. If I was to flip the camera around, can I do this up underneath here? Hopefully you can see the petrol pump up underneath there. So I've got that mounted, and I've also wired it up. You might be able to see the cable running forward to the hole over there, I think, going through the boot floor. I've got a plastic sheath around it to protect it. And so that comes around the battery box here and comes up through here, through the bulkhead there, going through that grommet. I'll have to tidy the wires up a little bit later. So that wire runs forward to the engine bay, which will go to my battery terminal switch for permanent live. And then I will hook up a relay, put a relay in the engine bay, which will run a trigger line from the starter motor, so that'll fire the petrol pump up. So that's what I'm doing at the moment. Also just cut in a new back panel there in the hardboard, you can see. Didn't have one before. I'm not even sure what it's supposed to have from factory, if anything, but you know, if you don't have something there, then it's just open to the back seat area. There's a crossbar. You can just see the end of the crossbar starting there, so there's a crossbar that mounts on behind there. So I've fixed the hardwood to that, and then I'll take that out again later stage and wrap it with some black vinyl just to tidy it up. So just doing these little jobs as I go along here a bit, and so if I come around here, you'll see that I've also just installing some new noise deadening material under the seat. Did have this old original rubbish here. Well, it's not rubbish, I guess it served its purpose, but it's done its day, so just replacing that with some nice modern stuff. As you can see, sitting in there, so I just need to finish cutting that in and fixing it in. Then I'll reinstall the back seat. You can see the battery line coming through there, and then the cables coming through that firewall down, and we're running forward. So yeah, that's just what I'm working on today, just getting that back seat reinstalled, and then I'll move forward to the engine bay. I haven't put the tank in as yet. It's just sitting up on the roof there. You can see I've just painted the brackets and got some new high tensile nuts and bolts for it to bolt it in again. But before I do that, I want to just do some work with this thing here. You'll see that's the fuel pickup and sender unit that goes in the tank. That's the original unit, and I'm just looking to see what I can do with this to increase the size of the pickup pipe. This car, or these cars, probably in general have a 5/16 hard line that runs front to rear for the fuel, but that pickup pipe there is only 3/16, so it's quite a bit smaller. You know, so to me that seems like a bit of a bottleneck, and it's right at the start there. So I'm just doing some research on what I can do with this. One option is obviously to replace that pipe with a larger pipe. You can see it's just held in with an olive there running through the flange, so it could be a job that I do. Or alternatively, I've been looking at some fuel senders from other makes, things like Holden Tiranas, but also I've just been looking at the senders for Land Rovers actually. I don't know where I got that tip from, but I found one for sale for a Land Rover, for the classic Land Rover, and I started looking into those, and the range of Range Rover units are quite sort of similar looking arrangement, and because they're V8s, they have a larger pickup pipe. So I'm just thinking about perhaps getting one of those and then modifying it slightly to suit the Vauxhall tank. I'm just sort of like, again, just doing a little bit of research on that before I pull the trigger, but I really want to do something with that sender before I reinstall it, just to try and increase that fuel flow to the engine. So that's what I'm working on today. I am just again just going to try and wrap up my work inside the rear seat there, just to get that rear seat back in, tied it up, and then I'll probably move forward to the engine bay and run that line right forward to the engine bay, and hook it up to my battery terminal, and then hook up the trigger line from the starter motor to a relay and get it all hooked up so it starts on the key, or the fuel pump starts on the key. Alright, so that's what I'm working on. Not very exciting stuff, just all necessary, so I will keep at it and give you an update when on to the next part of it. Alright, bye for now. Okay, so here we are again. Just a necessary update required here, because it's been I think a week since I actually did any video. I've sure just been doing odds and sods around the boot area here, and buying some bits and pieces. So nothing very exciting to take video of, so I'm just going to sort of show you where I've got up to now. So as you can see, I now have a tank cover panel in place. It's not fixed in permanently. I still need to underseal the underside of it, but I was able to pick up one of those from Smash Palace Wreckers, or Horapedo Wreckers up in the North Island. They're excellent to deal with, so I highly recommend talking to those guys if you need anything for your classic car. So yeah, I had to, it was sort of typical condition of a 40-year-old car. It was scratched up, and you know, had a couple of dents in it, and layers of paint and underseal on the underside. So I've stripped it right back to the bare steel and repainted it, and I just need to underseal the underside of it now. So I'll pull that back out and underseal it and reinstall it in a few days' time. I've even sourced a little bit of rubber grommet here just to go around the outside of it to seal it in. Just a U-channel grommet, so that'll seal it off. You can see I've got to do the tank breather pipe that goes through that hole there, so I've got to just get a bit of pipe to go through there and a grommet just to seal that off. That's my sender wire there, it's got to go through there as well. So that's a nice little job done. I've gone ahead and installed well, actually underneath here I'll show you the tank's now installed. So that's in place, as you can see. Nice new nuts and bolts. And if I get right under here, I'll give you a quick shot of the my pump setup. So you can see that in there. So there's the pump, and there's a fuel filter. All the bolts in. That fuel filter worked out really well, and that an old bracket from a coil was the perfect size for that. So I've utilised an old coil bracket to mount that up to the floor there. So that's all plumbed in, wired in, and plumbed into the tank. And that's the sender wire that just plugs on there. So yeah, underneath here we're all done. I'm probably going to test this perhaps today. I'll see how I get on. I have installed a relay up under the dash. Oops. To power that up, and that's in a little location up under here. So that's just up in the little glove box area with a fuse in there that's easy to access. So I've just got to run a wire, a trigger wire to that basically now. It's got power coming from the battery to it, and power going out to the pump and earth and all that, of course. So it's really just a trigger wire I need to wire up to it to operate it, which will come off the ignition somewhere, I'm thinking. So that's done. I think I've shown you the back seats all back in again. So that's all tidied up, thankfully. Turned out to be a bit of a job, but that's all done now. So that's where I'm at. Really now I'm just need to concentrate on the engine bay again. I have gone ahead and ordered a new distributor under advice. So I'm going to be replacing the original 45D distributor with a 43D non-vacuum advance unit and a high output coil, which will negate the need for the AB14 ignition module unit and simplify things apparently. So that's what I will be installing before startup, of course. Hopefully I'll have that within the week, and I can install that. And from there, what else? I've just got a bit of new fuel line here, and I'm putting a secondary filter up in the engine bay, which I'm mainly using, even though I don't really need it because I've got the main one down the back. I'm just using it as a bit of a telltale more than anything, so you can actually see the fuel in it, make sure you're getting fuel to the carbs. So yeah, that's where I'm currently at. So again, really I just need to concentrate on the engine bay again here now, and getting this sort of ready for the first fire up. I'll need to install the radiator and all the different pipes for that, of course, hoses. And I still need to source an accelerator cable. Although I don't need that to start it up, I will try and pick one of those up probably this week as well if I can. And then we're getting pretty close, I think. So anyway, that's what I'm up to. I'll just start getting things tidied up in here, and maybe another week or so give you an update and see where we're up to. Alright, thanks for watching. Check back soon. Cheers. Just before I go, I failed to mention that I've also installed the gear stick into the W58 gearbox and got all that tidied up. Just put the grommet in and got the gear stick bolted in, tidied up the hole where it comes through the tunnel. The carpet will get tidied up also, of course, and then the center console will sit in there and close everything up permanently later on, but for now I'll just leave it like this. This will get me running and down the road. I did have plans, and I purchased a one of those little cube short shift adapters some time back, which I thought I'd utilise. And so I put it in and then didn't like it. It just didn't shift very nicely through the gears. It was very notchy. So I don't know. I think I'll just leave that out for now and just stick with the original. Yeah, it's not a bad little gear stick and throw to it, so you know it'll work fine. You can see I've gone and installed my original Vauxhall gear stick knob on there again. So that's all looking really good. Feels nice and close to the steering wheel. So it's you know, it should be a nice little arrangement to drive on down the road with. So that's done through there. And the other thing I was going to mention is I was also going to be working on my exhaust system myself in the next week or so. I've ordered some 2.5 inch bins, and so you can see I've got a bucket set up here, and that's the original muffler sitting up in there, which has 2.5 inch inlet and outlet already, so that's handy. So I'm going to utilise that again. And as you can see, I'm planning on mounting it forward of the diff, and it'll hoop up over the diff and then back down beside the tank here. There's the hanger there and out through the back. Originally that muffler was in this location here, right at the back. Because the new tank is that much wider, there's just no space here for it. So it'll go in front, and I might put a secondary resonator down the back here, or I can later if I want to change the sound, I guess. But for now I think I'll just install the original muffler that was in it, and set up with that and see how it sounds, and then I can play with it from there. I'm thinking I'm probably going to purchase another V-band clamp, and that'll go to the back of that muffler, and so I can separate it there from the rest of the tailpipe, which comes up over the diff. So if I want to work on it later on, it's just a little bit easier to pull out and work on. So as I said, I've got some tubing coming, some bends, 2.5 inch bends. So I'll be working on those over the next week or two. Same arrangement as before with the extractors. I'll be just doing the tacking up process and then just take them to be welded up permanently, and then I can reinstall them all here in my home, which makes it a lot easier rather than having to get the car trailered to a muffler shop or driving it down the road without any muffler. I should be able to get it all set up here and ready to go down the road, pretty much finished. So yeah, another job added to the list, but it's necessary, and if I can do it myself, then why not? Alright guys, well that's definitely all for now. I will catch you back in a week or so, see what parts have turned up and see what I've managed to get done, and give you an update from there. Alright, thanks again for watching. Bye now.